music with my bro. Will it dig it, yes or no? Here we go on with the show, the Hear Me Out Bro Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 16 of the Hear Me Out Bro Podcast. We're continuing with our Mount Rushmore series, and tonight we're going to be talking about bass players. So buckle up and get ready for it. And I'd like to introduce my brother Clark.
Hey, everybody.
And if you want to listen along, you can go to at HMOBP on YouTube and find our playlist there for each episode. So you can listen to the songs that we discuss. And if you want to help us spread the word, you can drop a comment on the videos, say the Hear Me Out Bro podcast sent me here, or they covered this on the Hear Me Out Bro podcast, something like that. Help get the word out. If you have any friends that you think might like this show, tell them about us so we can pick up more listeners. And if you have any questions, comments, show ideas, complaints, you can email us at hearmeoutbropodcast@gmail.com. If you want to join us on Facebook, we have a Facebook group. It's the HMOB, and you can join us on there and follow us. And when a new show comes out, we'll post something there. If there's things you want to discuss, we can do it there. Or sometimes we put extra pictures up from episodes, things like that. If you want to join our listener community. Yeah, so if you haven't heard the other Mount Rushmore episodes, we're just discussing and checking out all our favorite bass players. And then we're picking the final four to get carved into the Hear Me Out Bro podcast Mount Rushmore of bass players. And we'll also include our honorable mentions. And we also, since the first episode, we decided to add the crazy horse carving on the back of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a fifth wild card pick that goes on the back of the mountain, gets their own carving. And then our final podcast, after we cover keys next week, our final podcast will be assembling our fantasy football supergroup dream bands from all the artists that we covered. So, yeah, this week we're covering bass players. And
we'll also talk about any like unintentional super groups that we formed. Like, we just happened to pick all the members of this band, or all the members of this band, or nominated at least.
Yeah, if all of them got nominated, then those bands will get an honorable mention.
Yeah.
On the because they all were nominated.
Yeah.
They might be on the mountain.
They might not be a super group, but they're a group that's super. So
2 thumbs up.
Two thumbs up.
All right. So what do you look for in a bass player?
For me, it's like it has to have that like, man, that's dynamite. That's not just like, oh, he's part of the rhythm section. Like, I don't really want noodly stuff, but I want somebody who's going to bring the thunder. That it's like, it's a bass guitar. Like, it shouldn't just be like, oh, it's basically just like a percussion instrument, or like thumping along with the drums, or like something like that. You know, like a stringed metronome. But it's like, it's a bass guitar. Like, it should be like a guitar, but heavier. And so most of my picks are artists who could bring the thunder. Just like they could lay it down, just like timber, knocking trees over.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at kind of how groundbreaking and influential they were, and how skilled they were on their instrument, and also how they added musically to the band they were in. Like if you removed them from the band and replace them with another bass player, like would the band not be as good if they were missing that person?
Right. Or like a lot of times, are they like a second front man? Like, are they just as much, just as integral to the band? And like, they're not standing at the back of the stage, walking along with the drums. They're like out front.
Yeah. That's another thing I look for is like personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because some bass players like kind of fly under the radar.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess if you want to catch someone's attention, you got to like stick out a little bit.
Right.
So
yeah. One of my honorable mention, he's not the flashiest bass player, but he's a very memorable person. So that's why he's one of my favorite bass players, in that he's one of my favorite people on earth, and he plays bass. Cool. So, yeah.
I have one bass player who is kind of a side man. Is kind of a studio guy.
Right.
Is kind of one of those like in the background kind of bass players.
Mm-hmm.
But when this guy's playing, like you can't help but notice him and focus on him.
Nice.
So, like, even though he doesn't try to like stick out at all, you just can't help but notice this guy.
Nice. All right. Should we kick it off?
All right. So my first pick, I mean, we've talked about these guys a lot, how they could almost be a super group.
Right.
So my first pick for bass is Ronnie Lane, and this is the Faces 3-button Hand Me Down.
Rad.
Yeah, they're such a cool band.
Yeah, and it's like either he tipped the sound guy like $40, or like they knew that like we got to put him higher up in the mix. Like,
yeah, it just totally drives the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, the album version of that, there's actually 2 bass guitars.
Whoa.
It's like him playing like 2 bass tracks that like don't really do the same thing, but there's like 2 bass guitar tracks.
Oh, wow.
On the album version.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, he also had like kind of a growly, kind of like warm, kind of distorted sound.
Yeah.
Like he almost approached bass more like a guitar player, playing with a pick. But yeah, he just really held down the rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah, it had a really cool sound. Yeah, like the guitar was all like kind of fuzzed out and in the background by comparison.
Yeah.
It was like lead bass. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, Ronnie Lane was an interesting guy. He's in the Small Faces, and he sang a lot of their songs along with Steve Marriott. And then he sang a lot of the Faces songs, even though Rod Stewart was in the band. And he wrote a lot of their material. Then he moved to like some farm out in the middle of nowhere.
Whoa.
And like became like a back to the lander kind of guy, but not for very long because he got multiple sclerosis.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. And so he started a benefit concert thing called ARMS, Action to Research for Multiple Sclerosis.
Cool.
And they had a really successful tour and raised a bunch of money for MS and MS research. And that concert was Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, and Jeff Beck were all on that tour. And that was the first time that all three of the Yardbirds guitar players played together on the same stage.
Wow.
Was at the Arms concerts.
That's pretty cool.
And also for the last few sets that Jimmy Page did, Paul Rogers sang with him. And that was the first time Paul Rogers and Jimmy Page had really played together. And they kind of started the Firm out of that series of concerts from playing together. I don't know, just a little side history.
Nice.
Yeah, Ronnie Lane, he's a great songwriter. Yeah, like I said earlier, like, could you take the bass player out of the band and replace him and have it be as good? So yeah, at one point they did have a different bass player from 1973 to 1975. It was Tetsu Yamauchi. And yeah, they weren't quite the same. And Bill Wyman played bass with them later on. And also Glenn Matlock. But, they weren't the same band without Ronnie Lane.
So what kind of bass was Ronnie playing there? What's the make and model?
That's a custom-made bass.
Okay.
Leo Fender made the first, called the Precision bass. They called it a precision bass because an upright double bass doesn't have any frets.
Right.
But Leo Fender made the Precision bass, which has frets. So you have the more precise note. You don't have, it's easier to play.
Right.
If you're not super trained on it. Yeah. So the very first Precision bass had like a Telecaster style headstock, and it just had a single coil pickup. And I believe Ronnie Lane's bass is a Mattis with two of those early original P bass pickups before they went to like a split humbucking type coil. Well, it's still a single coil, but they split it so there's two different coils, one for the top two strings and one for the bottom two strings. So this is the single coil pickups that were just a single pickup body. It wasn't a split coil.
Okay.
So I believe that's what that is. Let me double check. It's a cool looking bass, and it sounds really cool too.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Yeah, it kind of looked like the shape of it, it's like 70s potato quality video.
Yeah.
So like until he was like right up front standing next to Rod, it kind of looked like a Rickenbacker a little bit. And I was going to joke that we should have a drinking game for every bass player on the list that plays a Rickenbacker or has played a Rickenbacker.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, it was a Zamitis.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are P bass pickups in there.
Cool.
Like Series 1, like 1950s P bass pickups.
Whoa.
Yeah, pretty cool bass. One of a kind. Yeah, I love those Zamitis guitars. The guitars back then, they had an aluminum top that was all engraved and stuff. They're super cool looking. They're kind of like a Les Paul, but they're like pointier and cooler. Not that Les Pauls aren't cool, but they're fancier.
Nice.
Not that Les Pauls can't be fancy.
No, they can be plenty fancy.
Okay, are we ready for...
Yep, your second pick.
I'll try not to go down too many rabbit holes.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll just have our normal discussions. My next favorite bass player is Jerry McAvoy, and this is with Rory Gallagher, Shadow Play. Oh, man.
Dude.
Longest song on our list is not a prog song.
Dude.
Is it too late to go back and change our guitar episode rankings?
Yeah, how did we not have Rory Gallagher like as all four?
I had him as an honorable mention, but well, there's too many good guitar players, It's like, how can you pick?
Well, yeah, and I know Rory's going to get his own episode, and I know we're talking about bass players, but I don't care.
Well, it was Chuck Berry, Angus and Malcolm, Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen. And then Rick Derringer is as a crazy horse. Yeah, I don't know. Well, okay, Rory Gallagher gets his own carving.
Well, because I have, yeah. Well, no,
but it's not. But it's not on Mount Rushmore. It's somewhere in Ireland.
Yeah, he's like our Colossus of Rhodes or something. Like he just gets a giant statue of him. Yeah, because I had him as one of my picks, right? I think I did because I had Million Miles Away.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Yes. So he was there. But yeah, I mean,
man. And it's like that guy's a phenomenal bass player, but like Rory is just he's so distracting. Like he's such a rock god that it's like
that was just complete mayhem going on there.
Like controlled, perfected mayhem. Like holy crap.
Yeah, it's like a riot, but like it won't get out of control because like there's only one guy like channeling the whole direction of the riot.
Yeah, and like I don't know, there's this trend going around social media this week, like post a non-religious picture you consider holy, and it's like just this video, like that. It was like a religious performance. Like he gets down in the audience, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, Rory Gallagher is right here."
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
Oh man.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay. Those players.
A side addendum. So Rory Gallagher will get his own carving, but it'll be in Ireland somewhere. It won't be over here with everybody else.
Oh, here it is.
Okay.
You know about the Giants Causeway?
Yeah.
That big basalt, like what are they? Hexagons? Like the formation of like basalt rock that like goes out into the ocean. And one part of it is in Ireland, and the other part of it is in Scotland, like across the
North Sea.
Yeah, I guess it is the North Sea. I think there might be a different name for it. But anyway, yeah, it's like a giant basalt statue of Rory Gallagher. One foot on the Giants Causeway in Ireland, the other foot on the Giants Causeway in Scotland, just because.
Yeah. Holding his strat.
Yeah, just because he's too big to fit just in Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of jaded as a guitar player, like, and I've always played in 3-piece bands.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, to me, a good bass player has got to be able to hold it down and like just kind of go with whatever direction you want to go.
Okay.
You know, be able to follow but still hold down the fort.
Right.
I don't know, like Jerry McAvoy is just so good at that. You know, he can just keep things moving and keep the power going. While Rory can just go off on guitar. Yeah. And just so driving. He was in a band called Deep Joy before he was in Rory Gallagher's band.
Okay.
And they played a lot with Taste. So when Taste broke up, Rory Gallagher was like, "Hey, come rehearse with my new band."
Nice.
So yeah, that was Deep Joy, and John Bonham and Robert Plant were in Band of Joy. So like, if you're playing in a band, that isn't your favorite situation, like just change the name to something with the word joy in it, and like whatever band you'll be in next is going to be amazing.
Interesting.
Like a career type of band. Right. So just make up a name with the name Joy in it.
It's like the band name equivalent of like throwing a coin in a wishing well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I'm hoping for something better.
Yeah.
Also, if you're in a band, your bandmates want to change the name to something Joy. Maybe it's time to take stock.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Sell some of your furniture and stuff.
Yeah. Maybe don't quit your day job.
Travel light.
Yep.
geographically, let's kind of stay where we are. What's your next pick?
In Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of legendary bass players that are also like the front man for the band, also the lead singer. Because, you know, a lot of times it's like, okay, you're just kind of playing the rhythm. You can kind of do two things at once. But then sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, you're like a lead bass player. You're doing all this like crazy creative stuff and you're singing. So it's like, it's next level. You're not just multitasking. You're like, I don't even know what the metaphor would be. Like,
well, there's multitasking and then there's multitasking.
Multi-mastering.
Multitasking.
Yeah.
Probably further down our list where we'll see some of that.
Yeah. So this is Phil Lynott with Thin Lizzy and Bad Reputation.
Okay. I have him as one of my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's like automatically up because he was a pick and
Maybe it means he gets
strong contender.
Extra consideration. And speaking of contenders, please allow me a second to apologize for not having Ryan Downey on our drums episode as at least an honorable mention.
Yeah.
What a beast on the drums.
Yeah. And I picked the guitar players as honorable mentions also, but I mean, you can't really split them apart, you know, kind of a package deal.
They're so good. Okay. Phil, he's got like that amazing voice. Such a cool dude. I'm not a bass player, so I don't know how technically proficient he is, but like,
no, he was great.
He sounds fantastic to me. So
it's interesting listening to Jerry McAvoy. I was thinking, I wonder how much of him like Steve Harris listened to growing up.
Right.
And then
no spoilers.
You know he listened to Phil Lynott.
Of course.
And Phil Lynott also has a mirror pick guard.
Mm-hmm.
And so does Steve Harris.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was like influenced even more than just with the bass playing. I think like his number one bass
style-wise
might have a little bit of tribute on there too with the mirror pick guard.
Yeah. I think like there's probably a lot of, I don't know, incest isn't the right word, but like, you know, there are thousands of like really awesome guitar players that people know by name and like, you know, oh man, like I grew up listening to Eddie Van Halen and he inspired me to play guitar. But it's like, I don't think there are as many influential bass players. And so I think it's kind of...
Well, unless you're a bass player.
Right. But like
nobody's going to pick up bass. Well,
I mean, people do, but it's always like, oh, they play guitar, but then the band needs somebody to play bass. And like, they're like, okay,
well,
I guess I could do that.
Yeah.
And then they excel.
Maybe.
But then, I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of like direct influence. Like it's more of just like passing the torch, kind of. Just what my honorable mention in one of his interviews talks about one of my picks, and like he's the reason why I got into playing music, not necessarily just for the music, but just for the lifestyle.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa, okay. That's pretty awesome. I don't know. Sounds cryptic, but no spoilers.
I think the only bass players that people like are influenced by, like, oh, I want to play bass. That's so cool.
Right.
Would be like the slappity type bass players, you know, like Flea
and Les Claypool.
Les Claypool. Yeah, I could see like somebody hearing that and going, I want to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Further down the list, I'll share my opinions on the slappity slap stuff.
Yeah. I never really I like Flea and like, I don't know, I could, you know, this is Sonoma County blasphemy, but could take or leave Primus. I have yet to really like.
I thought you were
Primus.
into them back in the day. Yeah, they're a little too zany for me,
which is weird because I like zany.
Yeah, we experienced some technical difficulties. We lost our internet connection for a day, and then the power was out the next day. So we're picking up about 72 hours after the previous section of this podcast. And we also apologize because this one's going to come out a little bit late, but it's Thanksgiving week. So hopefully we'll have it out before Thanksgiving and you can enjoy it on your time off or your drive to go eat turkey and pumpkin pie somewhere.
Nope. Hopefully you're safe and not underwater from the storm.
Yeah, there's a lot of water that came through here the end of last week, but things are looking better now. So we're carrying on and forging on with the podcast.
Nice.
So this next bass player, so this is Leland Sklar playing with Billy Cobham on his first solo album, Spectrum, and this is the song Stratus.
Be groovy.
Yeah, late great Tommy Bolin on guitar there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he just lays down a groove, just super solid groove. Everybody else is just like kind of going crazy and he's just locked in.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you have a super group of like jazz fusion-y guys, like somebody's got to be the designated driver.
Yep.
Yeah, Leland Sklar's cool. He started off playing in James Taylor's band, and he played with like all the Southern California people, like Warren Zevon, Jackson Brown, Linda Ronstadt. And he played on Phil Collins' solo albums, No Jacket Required, But Seriously. So those are like, I don't know, two of the albums that not all his hits came off of, but when he was kind of peak Phil Collins, 80s Phil Collins.
Right.
He's the one that I was talking about earlier who, even though he's like in the background as the bass player and like not being a front man or like showing off or being flashy or anything, like you can't ignore him when he's on stage because he looks kind of like Gandalf. Like he's the full-on bass wizard. And like he drives hot rods around. So he looks like Gandalf and he drives hot rods around like just as his daily drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Like not muscle cars, but like actual hot rods.
Right.
And he has 1,088 credits on Discogs for appearing on people's studio sessions.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, like he's played with everybody, and
right.
he's like the first call bass player.
Nice.
Yeah, well, in the Los Angeles scene, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And we also heard him back on our Slow Down episode, playing on Brian Hyland of Yellow Polka Dot Bikini fame's version of Slow Down.
Nice. Yeah, which I remember being a really fun version of that song.
Yeah. And we also talk about this Billy Cobham album every now and then when we talk about Tommy Bolin or like how Jeff Beck wasn't the first like jazz fusion-y guitar album out there. Although this is technically a jazz fusion-y drum album. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, Leland Sklar. He just seems like a really cool dude. He has a knob on his guitar, on his bass, that doesn't do anything.
Oh, yeah. I think you've told me about this before.
Yeah. So, like, when a producer's like,
oh, yeah.
Well, like a producer will be, hey, it sounds great, but could I have a little more of this or that? He'll be like, oh, yeah, sure. And he like turns the knob, but it doesn't do anything. They're like, nice. Oh, yeah, that's great. Perfect. Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
extra sauce.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
man.
extra sauce knob.
Yeah.
Uh,
The placebo sauce,
yeah.
which would be a pretty good title for a fusion album, like a proggy
Yeah.
fusion album. Placebo sauce.
Oh, man. Yeah. If you haven't heard this Billy Cobham Spectrum album, check it out. Because, yeah, he lays down so many great bass grooves on here, like Snoopy and the Red Baron and the song Stratus. Yeah, there's just really cool playing from all four of the guys on this album.
Nice.
So it's one of my perennial favorites. No singing though, no vocals.
What?
I know, but it's not prog. It's fusion.
Yes.
Okay, so sometimes people groove, but they don't just like stick to a real simple bass line. Sometimes a bass player can be like the third lead guitar player in the band.
Right.
And this next guy is kind of that. So this is Phil Lesh with the Grateful Dead playing Broke Down Palace. And we just lost him last month. So rest in peace, Phil. Nice little ditty.
Yep.
Phil is great. Like at the concerts, there was a whole like little subsect of the whole Deadhead scene.
Okay.
That was called the Phil Zone. And it was like this little pocket of like all the Phil nerds that would stand right in front of Phil Lesh and just like focus on what he was doing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like that little area was called the Phil Zone.
Oh, man.
All these bass player nerds. But I love the sound of that bass on American Beauty. Like, well, there's a couple different basses I think that he used on there, but like that song, it just has this like really like full and warm, like woody, like plucky kind of tone. It just sounds so cool. And I went down this rabbit hole, like trying to figure out, well, like what bass was he playing on American Beauty? Like, how did he get that sound?
Right.
Because it's so full and deep. It was not an easy quest either, because he was playing two different basses around that same time.
Right.
Because you can see like what he was doing in concert, like what bass he was playing. And he had a Guild Starfire bass with flat wounds, and then he had a Gibson EBO or EB2 with flat wounds on it, but it also had Guild Starfire pickups in it. But then also around the same time, Alembic, which is a bass company that started in San Francisco, ended up in Santa Rosa for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had a handful of friends that have worked for them. And I think they're in Rohnert Park now. I think they moved their factory, but they just make like these crazy, they were like the first like custom high-end bass makers. And so like it was a big mystery, like what was on this album? And they said, well, there's two bass tracks. If you listen to the engineer, he said he had his split signal. So he had an amplifier, or he had two amplifiers, or, you know, they mic'd one side and then mic'd the other, or they did direct and mic'd the other. I could not figure it out. And I figured it's probably the Starfire, and that's the first bass that Alembic modified for him.
Okay.
And like replaced all the electronics, and became the brown bass, I think they called it. Yeah, I went through a bunch of iterations. Yeah, so I finally figured out, well, the really woody sounding ones are probably the Starfire. And back then, there was only like one brand of strings that all the top players used, but they didn't have round wound strings as much till later. So it was pyramid flat wound strings. And so now I have a Guild Starfire bass with flat wound pyramid strings on it, and it totally gets that sound.
Nice.
But it's not split like an alembic. And then there's a thing called playing in the band.net, where they take old Grateful Dead multi-tracks and they have like a mixer online where you can like go on there and like check out all the different tracks. And at one point they had a track from American Beauty on there. So I was able to see, oh, there is 2 bass tracks. And I could listen to them. And it's like, okay, so, because I didn't know, like if you split it, which one is going direct and which one is going to the amp. And so I was able to tell that it was the bridge pickup that was going to the amp. Because I could like split out the 2 tracks to like, okay, well, this is definitely the treble pickup, and that's like a mic'd amplifier sound. So that's how they have that really deep low end, is because the neck pickup is going direct to the mixing board.
Okay. That's cool.
So I finally figured it out after spending a few months like reading every interview and looking at pictures and scouring the webs.
Nerd.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah. And I mean, it's one thing to be like nerdy enough to have a Guild Starfire bass with pyramid flat wounds on it. Like that's already pretty nerdy.
Uh-huh.
But when it's an emerald green Guild Starfire bass with flat wounds on it, and you got the green one so it would match your Guild Starfire emerald green guitar. That's like beyond nerdy and like needs professional help.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
If not professional, like psychiatric help, at least like a professional roadie to help you carry all your crap around.
Oh man.
Anyways, yeah, rest in peace, Phil Lesh, man. He added so much to the band. Nobody played like that, where they're just like, if you listen, I don't know, people that know, people that don't care. But like, if you listen, it's like he never played the same thing twice, really. You know, if you listen to like every time they play the song, like he knows how the chord structure goes, and he's just like surfing the wave or something. Just
he's doing,
you know, it always works,
right?
But like it's not. He didn't have like parts.
Interesting.
You know?
So he's always doing something a little bit different,
or he's just playing the song like he's playing it for the first time,
right?
And just knowing how the song goes.
Interesting.
Like there were some parts, you know, like there were some introductions where he would always do the same kind of thing to like kick things off.
Right.
But he was always just kind of like winging it, or just like going with the flow, I guess.
That's cool.
Yeah. And he had a cool voice too. Like Box of Rain on this album. He wrote that one and he sings it. Yeah, just a cool guy. You know, I'm not all into the whole like hippie mystique BS and stuff, but like, I don't know. These guys were pretty cool, you know?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I'm not like a big like Jack Kerouac fan, or like, you know, Jim Morrison was a good singer, but like, I'm not going to like make a pilgrimage to his grave or anything like that.
You're not?
If I'm in the neighborhood, I might go check it out for the grams.
Next time you're in Paris.
Yeah. Oh man. We just watched Parks and Rec in Paris when they go to Paris on a whim because neither of them have jobs anymore.
I don't remember
And
that one.
he's like Ben standing there. He's like, it's amazing. It's like I imagined it would be, but it's like more than I imagined it would be. And she's like, yeah, but like right over there's the Eiffel Tower. And they like zoom around and he's like, no, but this is the bridge from Inception.
Man.
Yeah. He's just like, that's like what he wanted to go see. He's just like in awe of it. And like the Eiffel Tower is just like over behind his other shoulder, just like sitting there.
Right.
And he's like, have another little base red thread thing. So the Guild Starfire, like Phil played one. Jack Cassidy also played one. Jack Cassidy played his through a Versatone amplifier, which has two power sections. One powers either a 15 or 12-inch speaker, and the other powers an 8-inch speaker. And they have an interesting tremolo system that was developed by the guy from Magnetone Amplifiers, a guy named Don Bonham. So the Versatone amplifiers, Jack Cassidy went down to Los Angeles and the Wrecking Crew, they recorded, Jefferson Airplane was recording in the same studio as the Wrecking Crew, and Jack Cassidy, or Cassady, or however you say his name, hit it off with Carol Kay, who was the Wrecking Crew bass player that played on everything during the 60s, you know, the Monkees and the Mamas and the Papas, and just, she was the Leland Sklar before Leland Sklar came along.
Right.
And she played through a Fender Super Reverb, but then after that she played through a Versatone. And the Versatones are weird. They're almost like an accordion amp or something, but they have a unique sound and they sound good. They sound really good for bass. But yeah, I also have a Bonham 120, which is Don Bonham's personal company's version of the Versatone amps. So I have one of those here in the studio to play bass through sometimes. It's an interesting amp. But anyways, more gear talk. Yeah, when you have a studio, you kind of want to be able to just like, oh, you want burnt umber for this painting? How white a brush? You know, it's like, what colors and brush technique does this song need?
Right. Oh, we're all out of phthalo blue.
Yeah.
Better get more.
That's why there's so much junk here. It's like,
it's all really well organized, at least.
You know what would sound cool on this song? Remember that bass tone on American Beauty?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't point fingers. I'm like the same way with miniatures and wargaming terrain. But it's like,
yeah,
when I'm like in the zone, when I'm feeling creative and like working on a project, I don't want to be like, oh man, there's this thing I need to get. Okay, well, I could get it here in a week, or you could go see if the hobby store has something similar.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you just, you got
to have it on hand.
Got to have it on hand.
Don't stop the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing when you're recording music, it's like the muse is fleeting.
Right.
If you have a riff and an idea in your head, it's like you want to lay it down like as it's developing, because that, like, the first take is almost always the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like 99.9% of the time, the first take out of the gate is what goes on the record.
Yeah, you're coming at it fresh.
Yeah. The more time you spend on it, the more you lose the trail.
Right.
Lose the scent.
Nice.
speaking of scents.
I'm just like, how are we going to segue at it? Okay. Okay, this next song, my next pick, just it doesn't need a segue. It's the 800-pound gorilla that just stomps into the room and takes over the conversation. So this is Lemmy Kilmister with Motorhead playing Ace of Spades.
Yeah, I guess the only way I could have like set you up with a good transition between those two songs was if I played some of Jerry Garcia's like card playing gambling songs.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you know, this show is all about comparison and contrast. So
yeah, it's pretty contrasty.
Yeah.
Man, Lemmy was so cool.
Yeah, it's like he's more famous for being a rocker than being a bass player. But, you know, he was one of the greats. Yeah.
Yeah, Rickenbacker threw a Marshall.
Yeah.
With 415 cabinets. Just
it's
turned all the way up.
Yeah, kind of the like Shelby Cobra of bass gear.
Oh man.
It's just like make it bigger. Make it
raw.
Yeah.
Turn it all the way up.
Just plug it right in.
Yeah, Rickenbackers have a trick up their sleeve, but I don't think Lemmy used that trick. I think he just plugged it straight in.
Tricks. Yeah.
No. It's a cool trick though that Rickenbackers do.
I think the only trick that Lemmy really used was like, you'll notice in that video, and like every time I've seen them play live, well, like I only saw them play live once, you know, every live footage I've seen of them, he has the mic really high up.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like his throat is kind of like a straight line. So he can like really accentuate that like guttural Lemmy growl.
Yeah, it's almost like the position you see frat boys in when they're doing a beer bong or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
another terrible comparison.
Yeah.
Oh man. I need to get a Motorhead shirt, I think.
Yeah, me too.
Is the mall still open? Go down to
That's true.
Hot Topic and
Hot Topic will have a Motorhead t-shirt.
Well, maybe they will. Seems like they could. It's plausible.
Yeah. Well, plus you know that you need fodder for all those like middle-aged rowy gatekeeper dudes to like stop teenage girls in the mall.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, name 3 songs. I bet you can't name 3 songs.
Not including Ace of Spades. Everybody knows that one.
Right.
Yeah, Motorhead's just one of a kind. You know, like the punks loved them, the metalheads loved them, the hard rockers loved them.
Yeah.
And they're not really metal. They're just a loud, fast rock and roll band.
Yeah, but it's like
they influenced everybody.
Yeah, and they kind of get credit speed. For like the drummer did a bunch of cool stuff. Like they kind of get credit for like pioneering thrash metal
fast stuff.
Yeah. And like famously, like the guys from Metallica were like, we formed the band wanting to be the American Motorhead. Like,
yeah.
And you can definitely hear a lot of that influence off their first album.
Yeah.
Like just straightforward and fast. So
yeah.
It's like they were kind of like a lens that everybody like, oh, that's how you do it. Okay. Oh, we're like a heavy metal band, but we don't sound as heavy as Motorhead. All right. Time to start taking notes.
Yeah. Man, I might need to find some kind of Marshall-y thing that I can play bass through. Because I have the Rickenbacker. I have the Marshall, but I'm not going to plug a bass into my Marshall because it's too old and it's too old. I don't want to abuse something like that much. But yeah, maybe I could try one of my other like 412 half stack things, and maybe my 5150, like the crunch channel on the 5150 would sound cool with the Rickenbacker in it.
Oh yeah.
If I destroy the PV speakers, I won't feel nearly as bad as destroying a bunch of vintage greenbacks.
Right.
Won't hurt my wallet as much.
Yikes.
Yeah, just that grindy bass tone.
Yeah, and it's just
great.
Like starts out the beginning of the song and just pulls you in.
Anything else on Lemmy besides him being the namesake for your pooch?
Oh yeah. When we got this dog, we kind of wanted like two names, like I don't know, like a formal name and a nickname, and so like some way we could like shorten it to sound cutesy. And so like his full name is Lemminkainen, who was one of the like archetypal heroes or characters from Finnish folklore. He was the wanton lover boy who's like always chasing after the ladies and getting into trouble. And it's a typical Finnish name. It's got a lot of consonants and umlauts and stuff. But then we could shorten it to Lemmy. So
nice.
He has two namesakes. And the joke is that it's like, yeah, he's like a cuddly pit mix, but he's also kind of a rowdy, naughty boy. He's always, we ended up with him because he kept busting through fences and killing chickens and stuff. And so he's a bit of an escape artist, always getting into trouble. But then he's also like a total cuddle bug and will like lick you to death. So like the name fits for the folklore reason. But then it also fits because he's small and he's a little bit obnoxious and he's kind of loud.
Oh, man.
So his nickname also kind of fits.
Okay. So earlier we were talking about the slappity bass.
Yes.
And how
Slappity
it's a
bass.
thing. Yeah, it's a thing. We'll cover some of the slappity bass. I'm not the biggest fan of it. To me, like strings on frets is just like noise, kind of.
Yeah,
and like when
that's what we were talking about when the internet went out and the power went out. So hopefully we can salvage some of that conversation. That it's like Flea and Les Claypool and stuff were like being. They weren't pioneers, but they definitely like helped mainstream slap bass.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I like both of those bass players, but they're not my favorite. Like,
oh yeah, they're great. They're amazing bass players. And I mean, I like some Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I can listen to Primus. I can totally listen to Primus. It's just like, I don't know, when I hear it, it just sounds kind of like a racket to me, like that type of bass playing, especially like when they're like hammering on notes and stuff. It just sounds all like, bloop, bloop, bleep, bleep, bloop, and with some fret noise too. Just
right. Yeah, it's like a particular
and
taste
it's rhythmic and stuff, but
yeah, it's like a particular flavor of ice cream.
Yeah.
To bring up more food metaphors like last week. Yeah, where it's like, okay, this is good, but it's like, do I really want to eat just this flavor of ice cream? Do I want a whole sundae made out of this flavor?
Yeah, and sometimes, I want to hear bass be bass, it's like stay in your lane.
Right.
Like some of that slappy stuff, it's like stepping on the drummer's toes a little too much.
Right.
Just, I mean, song-wise for me, it's like, but there are some songs that just have epic slap bass lines that are just, that's what the song is.
Oh, totally.
So, in order to include some slap bass on here, we have to go to the originator of it. Well, I'm talking about slap electric bass. Of course, there's slap bluegrass and rockabilly guys.
Yeah, stand up
on double bass. But we're only talking about electric bass players here. So kind of the godfather of the slap bass is Larry Graham from Sly and the Family Stone. So this is Larry Graham with Graham Central Station, and the song is The Jam.
Okay, could you say that 3 more times as fast as you can?
Okay. This is Larry Graham with Graham Central Station. The song is The Jam.
Nice. Okay.
Twice more?
Got it in one.
Okay. So we got the slap bass out of our systems.
Yeah, that was a little different though, because like, I don't know. I know we used a lot of food metaphors last week, but like, I think the problem is like what a lot of times ruins slap bass for me, like when it's like that, where it's just like it's in there and it's just to add like a little punchy pop to the song, and like the song is already kind of has that bounce and funk to it. Whereas like I think a lot of times like Flea and especially Les Claypool, they use it like it's like that's the only spice they're cooking with. And so or like, that's the one sauce they know how to make. And it's like
cinnamon and everything.
Yeah, or like oh, okay, well, yeah, it's supposed to be like sausage gravy, like a white sausage gravy on biscuits. Why is it like a brown like onion gravy? Like that's not a breakfast gravy. Why is that on my French toast now?
Man.
What's happening? Yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of how I thought. Like, because there it was like it just totally fit seamlessly with the song.
Yeah, it's part of the groove.
Sounded cool. Yeah. And I'm like,
it's not so much a feature as it is like the bass line.
Right.
It is slapping the thumb a little bit.
Right. But it's not like, intrusive or like.
Yeah. And I mean, we could have included Bootsy on here too, and maybe should have.
Oh, crap. You're right.
You can do a last minute ad if you want.
Think about how cool it would be to see his like iconic star sunglasses.
Oh, the star base and the glasses.
Yeah, carved into stone.
Okay, one more thing on just this song in particular. I think it would be cool if bands start doing that again, where they would have like a song where they introduce the band.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Like,
so it's like, give everybody their little like 15 seconds and introduce the band, and it's cool when they sing it like this, Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about Chocolate's Funk Box or anything, but
well,
and I won't talk about the drummer like talking like, I mean, he is an Asian guy, but it's like you don't have to sound like Mickey Rooney and Breakfast at Tiffany's,
right?
It's like,
yeah, that didn't age well. Yeah, Uncle Mike told me that Bob Wills was the first guy to do that.
To do the funk box?
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, to introduce the band, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't on the Tiffany recordings. The funk box.
Yeah,
but
he'd be like, "Play it, Junior." Oh, yeah, he was the band leader.
Yeah. Yeah, fiddle player and band leader, and they would like introduce the rest of the band. And they play like the little mini solo. They come out and do a little ditty.
Oh man, yeah, we'll get to some Bob Wills.
Yep,
somewhere along the lines if we keep it going.
Yeah, I do really like that, and like a couple of the bands that I've seen recently play live have done that, where it's like
cool.
The singer will call out person so they can get their cheers.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
All right, we ready for the next one?
Yeah.
We're kind of in a little funky bass string here. So like people say, well, if you're going to play funky bass, you got to play slap bass, right? It's like, no, you don't.
No, not at all.
There's all kinds of ways to play funky bass, and slap bass is only one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So just to demonstrate that,
It's just
I
one of
talked
the
about
sauces.
Steve Kimmock. Yeah, I talked about Steve Kimmock and featured him on our guitar player episode. And this is the guy that played bass for Zero. He's at another Sonoma County local. This is Bobby Vega. And to tie in with Graham Central Station, when Larry Graham left Sly and the Family Stone, Bobby Vega played with Sly and the Family Stone some, and he's played with like all the soul people coming through the Bay Area back when he was younger. But this is Bobby Vega playing a pick bass groove. So he's playing with a pick here.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and Phil Lesh also played with a pick. Played with a graphite, like a special graphite pick, which I also had to buy some of to get all the way down in the rabbit hole.
Nerd.
But yeah, so this is Bobby Vega playing pick bass groove. That's it. Yeah. Great bass player.
Yeah,
and
totally.
like, I mean, it just shows you can get funky with a pick too. You don't have to slap. I mean, you can slap. He can also slap as much as he wants to slap. But like, he's kind of known for like, whoa, you can play funky with a pick?
Right.
It's like, yeah, check this out. Oh, yeah, of course you can.
Precision funky.
Yep.
Nice.
Okay, the next guy to cap off and end our funky bass thread, you can also just play funky with just playing with your fingers, like plucking with your fingers.
Right.
And this guy is one of my favorite bass players of all time. I've seen him play a few times, and it's just mind-blowing. And we talked about David Garibaldi in the drum episode. This is Francis Rocco Prestia with Tower of Power playing What Is Hip. And he's just plucking out 16th notes and just playing the funkiest groove. And if you're wowed by somebody who plays slap bass, say, oh, well, can you play funky like Rocco Prestia, just like hammer out those 16th notes? It's like, no, I can't do that. Yeah. So, what is hip? Yeah, my bucket just didn't get any funkier than that.
It's pretty good.
So cool. Words of wisdom from the East Bay's finest.
Yeah, I really like those lyrics. They were cool.
Yep.
Right.
Went out to find you a guru in an effort to find you
A new you.
Yeah.
So good.
Even managed to raise your conscious level. Yeah. Man, they're such a great band. You can pluck funky bass too. It's just takes a lot of practice to play solid like that and just keep it going. So yeah, we went down this whole sidetrack because we overlooked Bootsy, but we're not just going to say honorable mention for Bootsy. We gotta put him on here.
Yeah,
especially since we're doing a funky bass thread.
At the very least, he could be our crazy horse. Like he deserves a statue in his own right.
Yeah, I don't mind him being a crazy horse.
Yeah, just because I want to see his look carved into stone. Like,
yeah,
if there's anybody who's like an iconic bass player with an image,
we can do that.
Yeah, it's
well, we'll see when we get down to judging brass. When we get down to brass tacks.
All right, when we get the chisels out.
Yeah,
all right.
We won't include the private joke that I shouldn't have used the brass tacks pun, but yeah. So this is
right. A call back to Patreon only.
Yeah. So this is Bootsy Collins playing with Parliament from the album Mothership Connection. This is super groovalistic pro-funk. This is super groovalistic pro-functionistic. Hold on.
Okay.
Super groovalistic pro-funstication.
Yes. Did it.
Yeah. High five. Webcam fist bump. Yeah, we had to include him because, I mean, not only did he play with those guys and do other collaborations, he started out as part of the JBs, like backing up James Brown.
Right.
And like him and his brother were both in that band. Phelps Catfish Collins and
Nice.
Bootsy Collins. But yeah, they played with him for like a little less than a year with James Brown. But they're on some of like his best songs, like Get Up, Sex Machine.
Oh, yeah.
Super Bad, Soul Power. And they played on some of his best stuff. Yeah, even as a song is sampled, it might be a sample of Bootsy when he was in the JVs.
That's true.
So.
Okay, sort of still pretty funky, but a little different sound. And if you listen to hip hop in the 90s at all, you've probably heard some of these bass lines sampled. This one, I'm not sure ever got sampled, but a lot of the songs these guys wrote got sampled, especially off this album. So this is Marvin Isley, Isley Brothers, and this is Climbing Up the Ladder, parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's a good jam.
Yeah, it's like that groove is just like it's built out of like pyramid sized block. Like it lays the foundation like so solid for that song. Just like I remember the first time I heard that song, I was driving to work and I just had to keep like repeating that song and playing it louder.
Uh-huh.
It was just like, holy crap. Like, okay,
yeah, it's a serious groove.
I got to hear that again, but louder. Like it was probably late winter, early spring, like still pretty cold, like the kind of weather where you want the windows up and the defroster on, but it was like I had the windows down. Driving out to Sebastopol, it's like cranking the Isley Brothers.
Oh man,
it's like, oh man, the heater on full blast, my beanie pulled down over my ears.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix was in their band for a little bit and lived with the family and really influenced Ernie Isley, like his guitar playing, to play like that Who's That Lady style.
Right.
And Ernie Isley could also play left-handed or right-handed.
Yeah, didn't you tell me that there was like the mystery Isley brother that didn't really exist? The made up Isley brother?
Yeah, I can't find any proof of that, but like
him when he
that was always my impression.
Left-handed. Well,
yeah, there's one more Isley brother than there are actually Isley brothers.
Yeah, because when I was looking up, like getting all their names straight, like they have the members all listed: Ronnie, Ernie, Rudolph, O'Kelly, Marvin, Chris Jasper, and they all
Donner and Blitzen.
Yeah, and they all have like link on the Wikipedia page, but then there's Vernon Isley who doesn't. But then he's also listed as being a vocalist. So
yeah, he's also an ambidextrous vocalist. He can sing left-handed or right-handed.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
No, I don't want to spread any misinformation, but when I was younger, I always thought that they would credit Ernie Isley differently depending on if he was playing left-handed or right-handed.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that's factual anymore. That's just like what my belief was, like pre-internet days.
Fed canon.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. We're not always super truthful because we're not a history podcast and like we don't always get our information straight. But yeah, we won't knowingly pass on any
We
misinformation.
don't spread any rumors.
Yeah.
Okay. So what didn't you say something that we're gonna like have a drinking game or something whenever somebody played a Rickenbacker?
Yeah. Who was it? I think it was your first pitch.
I haven't had any Rickenbackers yet.
Yeah. Well, it was, what's his name from the Faces?
Ronnie Lane.
Ronnie Lane. I knew it was a Ronnie, but I couldn't remember. Like when it was kind of in the background on the Potato Vision video, it kind of looked like the headstock, like the shape of it, and then like the headstock kind of had that skunk stripe. It kind of looked like a Rickenbacker,
Oh.
and so I brought it up then.
Okay, yeah, but that was the Zemitis.
Yeah, right.
So Lemmy was our first Rickenbacker player.
Yeah. So I thought it might be funny if there were a lot of Rickenbackers on the playlist, we could have a drinking game.
It seems like there should be more than there is.
Yeah, like it kind of looks like there's only 2 or 3.
Yeah. But this next guy is definitely a Rickenbacker player.
Okay.
And this is probably his most iconic bass line. This is Chris Squire from the band Yes and the album Fragile with the song Roundabout. Wow, is that our first prog song in the episode?
I believe so.
Wow. Impressive. Yeah, like for a long time when electric bass first came out, they didn't have round wound strings, they had flat wound strings, which are pretty dull sounding. The basses, well, they could be bright if they wanted to, but the amplification was not really up to snuff. So most bass sounds, like up until like around the early 70s, were pretty muddy and not really distinct. But Chris Squire really changed that with the Rickenbacker and round wound strings. Just really, I think he was the first one to really have that bright, like in your face tone that is grunty and full sounding, but has a lot of articulation to it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the tricks with the Rickenbacker that I was talking about earlier, but that Lemmy doesn't use, is some of them have a feature called Ricco sound, where there's 2 jacks on the guitar. One is just a regular input jack to go to a single amp, but the other one is labeled Ricco sound, and you can run a stereo cable out of that, and then you run that to a splitter box, and that splits the pickups, so you can have 1 amp for the bridge pickup and 1 amp for the neck pickup. Kind of like what also I was talking about that Alembic did,
Right,
for Phil Lesh to split out his pickups to 2 different amps or 2 different signals. And Chris Squire was the first one that I know of to really utilize that. So for his treble pickup, he would play through a guitar amplifier. So it had more high end, had more articulation, but then he'd still have the fullness and the low end for all that bass register by having the neck pickup go to a separate bass amplifier.
okay.
But he would just use like a Fender guitar amp for the bridge pickup to get that really punchy, bright sound. And like if you listen to Larry Graham, like he doesn't have the brightness that a lot of slap bass players have nowadays. And I think that's kind of the way that bass evolved, is now it has a lot more high end and mid frequencies to it than it used to have back in the 60s. So like if you listen to like Motown, like everyone says the best bass player is James Jamerson. And I won't argue with them, but I don't want them to argue with me either that I didn't pick him for our list. But, his bass tone's kind of muddy. Some people really like that, So, and there's a place for it. But for me, like, Rico sound is a lot more interesting than flat wounds on a P bass through a Ampeg Portaflex B15. But that's just me. There's a time and a place for it. Just I don't find myself in those places very often. And I don't spend much time there either. One man's opinion.
Fair.
All right. I think to round out our set is going to be our first double picks of the night.
Yeah. I mean, you knew they were coming.
Yeah, I've been sensing this, like sort of how like someone who has an old injury can tell if it's going to rain or not.
Right.
Like I kind of knew this was coming when we first came up with the idea of doing Mount Rushmores.
Yeah. And so kind of how we've been putting these playlists together. One of my favorite podcasts in research of, they have a thing where they reveal their answers for their numbers for their review of like that episode. And they call it the missile key. So like they'll like say the number at the same time or like reveal the number at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And so like, I mean, it's obviously hurt us because it's like, oh crap, like how did we space out on Bootsy Collins? How did we space out on, whoever? And,
I figured you would have picked Bootsy like right out of the gates.
Maybe I need to try harder in the future. So Eric will add stuff to the playlist, and then I'll make a separate list. When he's done with the playlist, I'll add my stuff without looking, and then kind of integrate the songs integrate my picks into his listing.
Yeah.
So far. Yeah. So when I saw that Yes was on here again, I was like, okay, definitely that's where I'm going to put my, I don't know. I guess I could have put Motorhead here, but it's like, okay, we're coming out of the funk and the groove and we're getting into rock via prog somehow.
Okay, well what would happen? Let me give you a scenario. You're out on your route driving the truck, and Roundabout comes on the radio. So do you reach for the volume dial? Does anything happen either way? Do you change the station? Like what happens if Roundabout comes on the radio?
I don't think I'd change the station. I might turn it down. Well, I don't know. It's not that bad. Okay. Yeah, from the English Isles. Little band. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. One of the founding members of this band also writes like 99% of their songs. Kind of a front man almost, even though he's stood behind some iconic frontmen. This is the legendary Steve Harris from Iron Maiden and The Trooper.
Oh, man.
Okay, there's so much to talk about here. Some goofy, some serious.
How brutal were like old school horse stunts for movies?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like there's a reason the horse tripping thing has gone out of favor. Yeah. It's like they were doing that in the 90s.
Oh, man.
It's like, yeah, it's a little rough. Yeah, and it's like these guys pretty much like pioneered the genre of like historical warfare metal.
Yeah.
Sabaton wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for Steve Harris. Like the word influencer these days, like,
Is totally overused and
totally
misapplied.
overused. And it's like, oh, somebody on TikTok, like giving you makeup tips or telling you what, product to buy or whatever. But like Steve Harris is a heavy metal influencer.
Oh yeah.
Like he pioneered like historical warfare metal song, pioneered like that galloping bass line. Like he wasn't the first person to ever do it, but like,
Well, he perfected it.
Perfected it. But
And-
it's like
And
the
like
song is about
technique wise, like what I was talking about with the 16th notes with the Rocco Prestia and Tower of Power.
Mhm.
Like Steve Harris and the Iron Maiden Gallop. That's like from the same type of playing, but it's like the metal version of that,
right.
where it's just the fingers going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Galloping across the strings.
Yeah.
And then like I love the video for this song because it's from their like X-Men era, their spandex era. Like they all have like very unique spandex outfits on that all kind of hint at what their superpowers might be, what their mutant X-Men abilities might be. But then like Steve Harris famously is never not wearing an Iron Maiden shirt, often with the sleeves ripped off. And it's like as big a fan as you can possibly be of Iron Maiden, Steve Harris is a bigger fan of Iron Maiden than you.
Well, it could be that he doesn't like doing laundry on the road. So he just goes to the merch truck and puts on a fresh tee.
Maybe rips the sleeves off, puts on a fresh tee.
Yeah.
Could be. But it's like, you see him play live, and I think he even does it in this video. Like, he'll have his foot up on the monitor and like be facing the audience and singing along, not into a microphone. Like the microphone is like 15 feet away from him. And he's just singing along. And it's like he's played these songs thousands upon thousands of times. But like he's feeding into the audience, and it's just like this feedback loop of enthusiasm. And he's just like, I love playing this song for you guys. I love this song. I wrote it from the heart. I'm singing along. Like I'm in the audience singing along with the rest of the fans. And it's just like, it's such an infectious feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about that, think about all those like prima donna performers that like were like one hit wonders and they get all mad. Like when somebody wants them to comes to see them and wants to hear their hit, you know?
Like, I don't want to, I'm never playing that song again.
I'm over that.
Yeah.
This is my current material.
Yeah.
It's like, well, write better material then.
Well, and then there's like, you go see Dave Wakeling playing solo, and it's like he plays all his stuff and then like goes and takes a break, gets a glass of water, and then comes back on the stage and is like, all right, here's what everybody wants to hear. And he busts out a bunch of English songs. And it's like, yay. It's like you can have both,
Yep.
But yeah. And so there was like a 90s movie, like proto hipster movie. They were going to see the characters in the movie were going to see some band, and like a friend of a friend, one of the minor characters in their friend group, like put on it like a band t-shirt, and he's like, one of the main characters is like, you're wearing the shirt of the band you're going to see. Don't be that guy. And it was this squashing somebody's enthusiasm, like, oh, that's not cool. And it's like, Yeah, go to an Iron Maiden show. Like, if you ain't wearing an Iron Maiden shirt, you're a poser. Like, like half the band is wearing Iron Maiden shirts. Like they purposely,
Yep.
like every tour has like 5 T-shirts. Like they're the merch kings, man.
Yeah, and what we learned earlier from Tower of Power, what's hip today might become passé.
That's true.
So don't worry about being cool.
Yeah. Like, be true to yourself.
Yeah, as cool as you think you are, there's people that don't care that are having a good yuck at your expense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Steve Harris, like, to me, like, there was always good metal bass players, but he was the first one that was like virtuoso, like level and like stepping out like his bass lines
Right.
to really stand out.
But not in like a proggy or like noodly.
No, they
or
totally
like,
served the song.
right.
Yeah. They totally served the song, but yeah, they're prominent. They're a big part of driving the song, like any good bass line should be.
Right.
But they're also like virtuoso level playing.
Right.
They're not just, like laying it down.
Right. Yeah, it's not just like something simple, but then he's also not like faffing about. He's like
Right.
yeah, like you said before, like a third lead guitar player, or in this case, a fourth lead guitar player.
Yeah. But Phil Lesh just kind of wanders about. So maybe that's saying all who wander are not lost might have been about him.
Yeah.
But who knows?
And then you should probably get a horse and start galloping instead.
Yeah. Make better time.
If you want to actually,
if you don't know where you're going, your horse will.
Yep.
So I too also picked Steve Harris for my list. And unless you have anything else to add about the Trooper or Bruce Dickinson era Iron Maiden, I'm going to go back to Paul Di'Anno era Iron Maiden and play Phantom of the Opera by Iron Maiden. Yeah, we talk about Maiden all the time. We haven't even had a Maiden episode yet.
Nope. We will, though.
Or a new wave of British heavy metal episode.
Yeah. We'll have both of those.
They'll get their own. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like, that's out of the gates. Like, that's first album. They sounded like that.
Yeah.
And it like famously, like they waited like a couple years, like punk was super big and they got a record deal and the record company wanted them to be more punk. And they're like, no, we're good. We're going to pass on this record deal and like get better.
Yeah.
And then 4 or 5 years later, like got another record deal.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time before they put anything out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then first album and Killers come out and it's like, yeah, a sea change of heavy metal. Like,
yeah.
It's like, oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah. On the early stuff, he played an Araya bass, which is like a Japanese bass, which a lot of people would have considered to be like, oh, that's not as good as a Fender or a Gibson or something. But, he played one and it sounded amazing. And people kind of started changing their ideas about what made a good guitar, and
right.
People started buying Japanese guitars, Ibanez and Arayas and things like that. So it's not always what you play. As long as it's a decent instrument, it's not always what you play. It's how you play it.
Yeah,
but sometimes it is what you play.
Sometimes,
but not always. Doesn't have to be.
But yeah, but when you're Steve Harris, it's like, well, Yeah, he plays a Fender
Yeah.
now, but
Yeah. He's going to sound like Steve Harris no matter what you put in his hands.
yeah, it's like you put a cigar box and some strings in his hand. It's going to sound like Steve Harris.
Yeah. So, since this is our first double pick, Steve Harris is already
Absolutely.
the order's in for
Mhm.
the stone carvers.
Yep.
They got their first one. So, you want to kick off your next pick?
So yeah, our next twofer automatic entry into the Mount Rushmore. I mean, if you've hung out with Eric or I or both of us,
Yeah, you'd probably guess this one.
Yeah, you probably guessed this one, and feel sorry for you. I mean, we've probably made you listen to these guys before. Anyway,
And before you jump on our case too hard, this is the bass player episode. This is not the singer episode.
Yes. And, in our defense, this guy is an amazing both singer and bass player.
Yes.
And it was like, okay, well, similar to Steve Harris, it's like, what era? Like, not just what album, but what era of this guy do I want to feature?
Which Night Ranger, or did you pick Damn Yankees?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We're not talking about Night Ranger or Damn Yankees. We're talking about somebody else.
Not this episode anyway.
No.
So it was like I had to think about it, and I was like, okay, there are so many iconic songs, so many possible picks. Like it's kind of you just throw a dart at the dartboard, and whichever one dart hits, the worthy pick. And then it was like, okay, which one really has kind of the stuff that gets my motor running. You can kind of tell from Thin Lizzy's Bad Reputation.
Yeah, all your picks tonight.
Ace of Spades, Trooper by Iron Maiden. They start off with just
pretty high octane stuff.
High octane punch in the face bass line right up front. Just kick open the door. And so it was like, okay, which song from this band is the most kick open the door? I was like, okay, it's got to be one of their older albums. And it was like, okay, lots of picks there. And then it was like, okay, yeah, has to be this one. So this is Geddy Lee, Rush, playing Bastille Day.
Oh man. Yeah, great song, great bass line in there.
Yeah, great bass line. There's that middle part, breakdown where he kind of gets has a little bit of a lakeside park kind of groove to it.
Uh-huh.
But it's it's like if you can still have a memorable bass line on a song where Alex Lifeson is just
yeah, there's so much going on there.
Just riffing to Valhalla, holy crap. If the bass can still come through despite all of that thunder and lightning.
Yeah.
It's pretty spectacular.
This is interesting here because usually I'm the retro grouch,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, man, the old stuff. Yeah, the old stuff is always the best. Old is gold.
Just doesn't sound the same.
Yeah. No, they were never the same after 74. Yeah,
right. Our famous Paul Di'Anno, Bruce Dickinson feud.
Yeah, well, it's not a feud, but
I know.
Yeah, our leanings.
Where we dig our trenches.
So So yeah, I also picked Geddy Lee, and this is Rush with The Big Money. Oh man, I love everything about that.
Yeah. Like, I really want to make fun of it as like, yeah, it's the big mullet era.
Oh man. Yeah, they're dressed like Crockett and Tubbs.
Oh no.
And they have all that Dire Straits animation.
Uh-huh. But it's like I think Power Windows and Signals, are those the two albums? There were two albums I didn't have for a long time. And then I picked them up on CD back in the CD era. And let me go through my library. Since I hadn't listened to them in a long time, I just listened to those two albums
Oh, they're so good.
over and over, like back to back, over and over
Oh man.
for like, I don't know, like
Subdivisions, Analog Kid.
yeah,
Oh,
for like quite a while. Oh, okay, yeah, and Grace Under Pressure. So yeah, I
yeah.
guess it was those three albums, and it's like, man, like it's almost like they were at their most experimental then. Like, you know, they were changing so much, and like, you know, weren't afraid to continue trying different stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you know, how do you follow up Moving Pictures? Like, none of their albums have been as big as Moving Pictures since, but like, they're still like super good. Like, it's still the same band. They're still writing totally awesome songs. And like this era, like those three albums, uh, they kind of they did this thing that I think of as like the roller coaster song, where it's like, you know, they're famous for like the time signature changes and stuff, but they do these like sweeping kind of loop to loop like musical movements, and like
Yeah.
yeah, and then like bring it down really fast, and like
Well,
I don't know, it feels like being on a musical roller coaster. And
yeah.
like, you know, if you've heard the song before, like it kind of builds like this tension, and then like unleashes into like a different time, different movement kind of thing. Yeah, just those songs where they would like, it's not a hook, but there's just like this like intensity where it just like builds and builds, and then just like pierces through this like membrane into like a different sound and a different vibe. Like,
Yeah. I think what was happening during this period is Getty was doing more of the writing and like incorporating keyboards and like sequencers and things into it.
mm-hmm.
So like the songs kind of had to be arranged around the keyboards. And Neil was happy with that, you know, because, you know, they're like listening to the Police and new wave bands and stuff. And so they were
Right.
really evolving their sound. But I think Alex felt like, you know, well, that's kind of my register, you know, where all that stuff is happening. It's kind of stepping on my toes, and, you know, I can play cool solos, and I can put some, like in this song, I mean, that's a killer guitar riff in there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think he felt a little pushed out by the keyboards.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just the cycle of the song, I think, is a little bit automated because of the way it's all programmed in.
Yeah, it could be.
So, yeah, it might be the roller coaster thing you're talking about.
Maybe. Yeah, their producer, like their long time producer, dude, and I felt the same way too. Like when they brought more synthesizers in.
Yeah, more technology.
Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, this isn't the band."
But it's still good, you know?
Yeah, it's still, yeah. They ended up becoming some of my favorite albums just because it's like, oh man, like.
Yeah, I love that stuff because, I was in high school, like I was a senior in 85, and I think Power Windows was 86. Saw him on the Power Windows tour, and yeah, it was just great. It was cool to hear all those songs live and stuff. Plus, some of their classics mixed in. It's like, okay, we know where they're going to play the new stuff, but like, what are they going to pull out of the back catalog? But yeah, it was all great.
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny because I say, oh, well, I picked the new Rush. But it's like, what is this, like 30-something years old now? 40 years old?
Yeah, going on 40.
Oh, man. Yeah. So I guess, like, you can hardly call it new Rush, but...
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's our second twofer, so...
Yeah, Geddy Lee is just such a legend. And
put Geddy on the order sheet for the Carving of the Mountain.
Yep.
All right. I believe the next two picks are yours.
Yeah, honorable mentions. I have some
honorable mentions too.
Yeah, I have a couple other honorable mentions, but I won't add them to the playlist unless you want me to.
One more thing, really quick.
Sure.
This makes Rush our first band where everybody's represented as far as our nominations.
Yes. But I
had Alex as a pick.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe you left somebody off because I knew you were going to pick somebody, but I don't see him here unless it's that last pick. So Rush is fully represented. I thought you would have picked Geezer.
Geezer Butler, yeah.
And I don't see Geezer here.
100%.
And we picked Dio, but not Ozzy, so...
Yeah, Dio Heaven and Hell era. Heaven and Hell or...
Yeah, Mob Rules.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's too late for you to add Geezer, because I think you just forgot it.
Yeah, I definitely did. Because when we were listening to Phantom of the Opera, I was like, who does this remind me of? Who am I forgetting? I mean, I know this is Steve Harris. And I was like, oh, crap. Yeah, Cliff Burton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, and so Cliff Burton is definitely one of my honorable mentions. Like, that guy was an amazing bass player.
And I totally forgot Lars. Oh, but we didn't have either of the guitar players up either. So,
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cliff was amazing. All of Metallica's bass players are amazing when you can hear them.
Yeah. Famously, like.
Yeah. So we'll listen to Geezer, and then I'll give my honorable mentions, and you can close out with yours, and then we'll pick the remaining two slots.
All right. So yeah, correction, along with adding Bootsy Collins to the playlist. This is Geezer Butler playing with Black Sabbath and Sweetleaf, as requested by Eric, because he's a stoner.
Man, so such good. A killer riff. I love that song.
Yeah.
It's like some great bass playing in there too. So Steve Harris and Rocco, pretty sure Geezer plays with all his fingers. Geddy Lee does this technique that he calls the claw, where he plays with like his index finger and middle finger together. He just kind of like claws at the strings with his middle finger.
Uh-huh.
But he like reinforces it with his index finger.
Right.
And sometimes his ring finger. But yeah, he just claws at the strings instead of playing all like articulated with his fingers. Though he does that too, but not in the same way that a lot of these other guys do.
Okay.
And pick is also a valid technique.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
don't let people look down on you if you play with a pick, because there's some great bass players that play with a pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, Geezer's cool. Helps to have a nickname too.
True. Especially when your nickname like means kind of like cool guy from the neighborhood. Like, he's a geezer.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's pretty
Okay.
pretty OG.
So I'm going to give the rest of my honorable mentions, like, and then you can give yours and list all yours, because you have 2 more videos that are honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, just because like people have got to see him.
Okay. So my honorable mentions are Lemmy, Phil Lynott,
Nice.
John Paul Jones.
Nice.
I mean, how great is the bass line in Ramble On?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Jack Bruce,
Mm,
Geezer, Bootsy, Carol Kay, Cliff Burton,
Yep.
Duck Dunn from Booker T and the MGs.
Oh yeah.
And kind of everybody else, Blues Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
John Entwistle.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't have everybody on the list. You can't, and even fewer people on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make some tough choices. I also
Absolutely.
had, you know, for the slappers, Les Claypool and Flea. You know, they're big influences for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
don't want to diss them just because it's not my cup of tea. But
Yeah.
you know, they have their place in the
They're
annals
great,
of
and it's like,
history.
oh man,
Talented. Change the sound of bass, really.
yeah, and it's like some of those Red Hot Chili Peppers albums, like the first one, obviously, and then man, like their cover of Stevie Wonder's Higher Ground, like
Yeah.
that song's just it's like eating cake. It's another food
My
metaphor.
favorite.
But it's just like, what's not to like? Like, it's great.
Yeah. My favorite Flea bass line is also a cover, and it's a Sly and the Family Stone cover of If You Want Me to Stay. But he doesn't slap on that one.
You're right.
But it's a great bass line, you know? That doom doom boom 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really good. And I have a favorite who's super underrated, but Boz Burrell from Bad Company. Like, a lot of people don't really pay attention to his bass playing, but he's a great bass player. And if you listen to it, he's playing a fretless bass. Like, a lot of people just think, oh, he's just playing bass, whatever. But he's playing fretless. If you really listen in, you know, he's a great bass player. He played an old Ampeg bass, fretless scroll bass.
Nice.
Which is not often heard in rock music. But yeah, Boz Burrell, great bass player. And since we're on the topic of fretless bass players, and since there's probably people that are already turned off the podcast because I haven't mentioned Jaco Pastorius.
Yeah.
Like, to me, yes, he's playing electric bass, but to me, he's more of a jazzer. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, he changed the sound of bass. He's a total virtuoso, totally amazing bass player.
Absolutely. But it's
totally
also
creative and inventive. But to me, he's more of a jazzer. You know, if we have a jazz bass episode, you know, we're I don't know, we kind of keep it in the rock wheelhouse.
Yeah, we have our influences. We have the stuff we like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like every time, like, oh yeah, like Jaco Pastorius, he's like the greatest bass player of all time. And it's like,
and he could be.
He
Charles
definitely.
Mingus, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's like, okay,
Ray Brown.
Yeah. But when I'm driving,
honestly,
or like when I'm on a mountain bike ride, like, what do I want to listen to? Do I want to listen to Bastille Day and Ace of Spades, or do I want to listen to, you know, some noodly 7-minute jazz think face song? Where it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's a sweet groove. Oh man, listen to that. Oh, or do I want to just like, the king will kneel and let his kingdom rise?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, when I was compiling things for the show, I reviewed a few Jocko videos.
Due diligence.
Yeah, and it's like,
if you will.
Nah. I'm already going to play roundabout. I'm not going to subject Clark to to like portrait of whatever that song is.
I appreciate that.
I mean, he's great. I love Jocko, but I don't know. I just couldn't find anything that was like, oh, this has got to be on here. Yeah,
Right.
I can totally convince Clark of this one.
Right. Nothing you felt like deserved to be carved in stone.
Well, I mean, it may or may not. Just, this mountain is not a national democratic owned by the citizenry, public landmark.
Yeah.
All these Mount Rushmores are on private property.
Right. And the Jaco Pastorius statue will be like carved out of marble and be like, by the like spring fed pool with like the recreation of the Acropolis.
And I mean, weather report's one thing.
With the rest of the Olympians.
Yeah.
It'll be a marble statue of Jocko.
Yeah, and weather report is one thing, but he did some great stuff when he was in Joni Mitchell's band, and just incredible music. Just, I don't know, we're meathead rockers. No apologies given.
Yep. Yeah. Do I need to play Motorhead again? I'll play Motorhead again.
Yeah. So that's my honorable mentions. So Lemmy gets my vote too. I just didn't pick out a Motorhead song to include on here.
Oh, more than just a honorable mention?
Well, it's an honorable mention.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. But
you
not
included
a guarantee. Yeah.
If you get a video and an honorable mention, if you make the playlist and the honorable mentions, that gives you a little leg up in the rankings.
But it's not. But it's not a lock. Like
it's not a lock.
Steve Harrison and Geddy Lee.
But it puts you in the hat.
All right.
For discussion.
Fair enough. All right. Are you done with your honorables?
Yeah. Yeah. So who are your honorable mentions?
So my honorables are Cliff Burton, just because that guy was such a dynamite bass player. And then two of my favorite bass players aren't like, I can't pick out anything that's going to, justify putting them on the list over Jaco Pastorius. Like, they're not the names. They're not the like, oh man, these guys are such virtuosos. Like, listen to this. But they have a cool vibe and they have such a cool personality that like part of the reason I like this band or these two bands are because of how cool the bass player is. So the first one is Sammy Hinka from Ensiferum. And we all grew up, or at least if you're Gen X, you grew up reading Bloom County. And I still remember it. There was a comic strip. There was like a minor character called Tess Turbo and the Blackheads. She was like this rocker, like Joan Jett style rocker chick. And it's her on stage with Opus, like fanboying and playing air guitar and stuff. And the captions go, she's rocking, she's bopping. Tonight, Test Turbo is plugged in and cranked up. Down and dirty with raunch to spare. The next panel is, but will she ever let them all see through this rock and roll shell into the shy, sensitive, withdrawn young woman who likes Smurf dolls, sad rainy days, and silly romantic poetry? She's like playing, riffing away on her guitar. And then she yells into the Mike, scuzzball, baby, he ain't nothing but a scuzzball. And then the last panel is her like jamming out on her guitar again, and she, it's a little thought bubble. She's like, let him wonder. So Sammy Hinka from Ensiferum, they have songs like One Man Army and In My Sword I Trust. They're kind of like the singer sings in harsh vocals, and they're kind of Viking metal. It's great band, great songs. Listen to Ensiferum. They're fantastic. But Sammy Hinka, just like, he always has this big grin on his face. Like, he's a really cute looking guy, even though he has a big bushy beard and long hair, and he, looks like a big Scandinavian dude. But his Instagram is pretty much just him, like, doing fun stuff, and his cat. It's this totally cute cat. But it's like, it's the coziest, sweetest Instagram follow I've got. And it's like, he plays bass for this heavy metal band. One Man Army. So good. So yeah, it reminds me of this goofy comic strip I read 40 years ago. It's like, that's totally Sammy Hinka's Test Turbo.
Berserker on stage, Hyga at home.
Mm-hmm. So then the other one is, and I couldn't include any ABBA on this. Eric said no.
Does ABBA have a bass player?
Yeah, but who knows who was playing on what album, what song. So because I couldn't add as much ABBA as I wanted to, I had to add a bunch of Finnish stuff. I already got to talk about my dog's name, and I thought there was something else. Maybe not. But yeah, so.
Oh, man.
Sammy Hinka is from a Finnish band. And then, once again, a lot of consonants. Jarkko Aaltonen from Korpiklani. Again, I don't think he would mind me saying this. He's a journeyman bass player. Their band, famously, they called themselves like the Journeymen. Like, we are journeymen from Finland, from the land of 1,000 drinks. Not so much just like, oh, I'm like, slightly above a novice or whatever. Like, they're like, no, we're journeymen. Like, we have our stock and trade. We're going and doing it. We're going on journeys. And Korpiklani, they're pretty much like a D&D adventuring party, because they're one of the only bands I know that has like a dwarf, not like a little person, but like an actual dwarf. Jarkko Aaltonen looks like he came right out of Moria. Like, this guy hangs out with Glowin on his days off. So this is an interview with him, so you can get a feeling of what a funny guy this guy is, and how much he looks like a dwarf. Like, this guy's straight out of Tolkien.
Oh, man. Literal squirrel.
Yep. Distracted by a heavy metal squirrel.
Nice.
Be better than that. And then a seriously talented bass player, my next honorable mention, who does not take himself seriously. Somehow this guy came up in my YouTube algorithm, and I am forever thankful. Apparently he teaches bass both online and in person in Australia. This is Donny Benet.
Oh, sweet.
Konnichiwa, greatest song ever written. Oh, man.
Yeah, he's a great bass player. I mean, he's got his shtick, that's kind of got him attention and stuff. But yeah, he's a great bass player.
His songs are kind of cheesy, like, you know,
But they're
intentionally
good.
cheesy, but they're good. Like they're serious in that genre. Like they're really good at being what they are. But then, yeah, it's like he's such a like weird looking dude, and he leans into being weird looking, and then just plays off that in the videos. So
he's Australian, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. So he's just like entertaining on every conceivable level. Like,
yeah, he leans into it. And if you're, you know, you work with what you're given, you know, it's like if you're a good bass player in that style of music, that's what you play. And if you look like that, you know, it's like that's how you look.
Yeah.
You know, don't try and be something you're not. Have fun.
Yeah.
Make a living.
Yeah.
Doing what you love. Yeah.
The Duke Silver.
Yeah.
Of weird Tim and Eric-esque music video, soulful grooves.
Yeah. Yeah, he's good. I thought when we were listening to that, I thought of a few more honorable mentions.
Oh yeah.
Well, one, just a local guy that like kind of influenced me. Well, besides the bass players I've played with, you know, who I love and are great, but like a local guy that was just like, man, this guy's great. Is Larry Boothroyd with Victim's Family?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, give him a shout out. Amazing bass player. He plays a kind of obscure style of music, but you know, I mean, he's you know, played with Jello Biafra and things like that too. But you know, not everybody has heard Victim's Family, but yeah, just a great bass player. Yeah, just to be able to see him playing, you know, when I was younger, I was like, man, yeah, good bass playing.
And legendary
doesn't have to be
local
far
band.
away. Yeah. But
who's the kid of one of your friends?
Oh,
we featured him in one of the metal episodes last month.
Yeah, Avery Thurman.
Yeah,
he's playing with Blind Illusion, which was the band Les Claypool started out in, and also the guy that previously owned my Rickenbacker, Adam Gates, who also has some connections with Primus, played in Blind Illusion.
Nice.
But yeah, so Avery Thurman is their current bass player.
Yeah, I thought about him when I thought of Cliff Burton.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he kind of looks like Cliff a little bit.
It's the reincarnation of.
Yeah, great player.
Yeah.
And the other bass player I was thinking of, he might almost be kind of like in the Jocko camp. Well, there's two bass players, Percy Jones, and played fretless bass. Did some cool stuff. Great bass player. But also Pino Palladino, great bass player.
What did he do?
He's known for a lot of things, but one of them is playing with Paul Young in the old days. He's from Wales and kind of started out playing with Paul Young. Great bass player. And from that, a bunch of people asked him to play on their albums. And then he was in the Law with Paul Rogers and Kenny Jones from the Faces. Yeah, and he's played with everybody. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people.
Right.
So he also filled in for John Entwistle in The Who for a while. I mean, yeah, he can play with all kinds of people. Played with Steve Jordan, doing a lot of sessions, and played on a lot of the John Mayer stuff. And he came out with a solo album, like, was it last year? My timeline's fuzzy. It might have been 2 years ago. He came out with a solo album that is a really cool listen. It's kind of avant-garde. It's kind of jazz. It has Blake Mills playing guitar on it. So it's a little kind of left to center. But yeah, really cool album. Really cool sonically. A good listen to. If you're into like audiophile recording type stuff. But Pino Palladino. Do you know that song, Paul Young, Every Time You Go Away? You would know it if you heard it. But yeah, it's kind of an iconic bass line.
It's not my favorite bass tone. It kind of has a food poisoning gurgle.
Yeah, Mike Gutch used to call it a well-executed fart tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like a jazz bass on the bridge pickup, and you kind of pick back there, but you let the low end happen with the strings.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a fretless too, which just kind of emphasizes that. But yeah, that's not the only type of playing he does, but that's where people were like, oh, that bass line from Every Time You Go Away. We need to get that guy.
Okay. Yeah, not really my jam, but maybe some of his other stuff might get me.
So we've gotten through our list. So
oh yeah, so we got to go back to the.
So we got 2 more to put up.
Yeah, so it's Getty and Steve.
We got Getty, Steve Harris. And we were considering Bootsy for our Crazy Horse.
Right.
And that can kind of check off our funk box, our FUNK box. Thank you, chocolate. Okay, so we got the funk thing covered with Bootsy as Crazy Horse.
Uh-huh. But like, yeah, the problem is like
they're all kind of, well, Phil Lynnett's totally iconic.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of iconic people, but it's like, and as much as I want to see Lemmy on a...
I want to see Lemmy too. And he's also an honorable mention of mine.
True, but it's like he's kind of more than just a bass player. Like,
well, he's Lemmy.
He's Lemmy. And so it's like, I'd feel more comfortable having Lemmy as our Crazy Horse and having Bootsy up front. Like rubbing shoulders with the greats. Because it's like Bootsy has like all of the personality and like the iconic style, but then he's also like known as being a phenomenal bass player.
Well, he's known as being a funky bass player. Like, I couldn't put him on there and leave Rocco Prestia off just because of what Rocco Prestia means to me.
Okay.
Because of how rad he is. But I'd also love to see Leland Sklar up there, too. Lee Sklar. Because he would look cool up there. Just the wizard. He has 1,088 Discog credits. Like credits for performing on bass to his name, recording with people.
Right.
And he's great. And he's still great.
Yeah, it's like, you're a pretty big deal if you've been in the studio 1,000 times.
Yeah, he's like first call. If you can afford him, he's first call.
Yeah, if the producers are push and play or push and record every time you're in there. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, this one's difficult.
Well, it's a tough one because, and it's not tough to know that Harris and Lee are up there,
right? But it's like, it's like one, if we put Geezer up there, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, these guys are heshers.
Yeah,
they got their head in the rock. They're rockers.
Well, I also included Leland Sklar because he's going to be like in the front running to be in my fantasy super group.
Right.
Oh man, this is a tough one.
right? Or
I prefer the finger picking funkiness of Rocco Prestia to like any of the other funky bass players.
yeah,
Oh, and Phil Lesh.
yeah. Or hear me out. Do we
Ronnie
just
Lane.
yeah, we have so many greats here. Or do we just throw caution to the wind and just like let the heat of the moment take over and just have Johnny Benet as all four faces on Mount Rushmore?
No.
Hear me
No.
out.
He's
What
more than just a face, though.
should we watch Konnichiwa again and just imagine multiple
Every
Johnny
face getting replaced by him,
Johnny
like
Benet?
doppelgangering.
Yeah. See,
No.
you're getting it.
It's a good, yeah, I get the gag, but
Okay.
he can't replace the two spots that have already been earned.
No, definitely not. Yeah, it's like I want to see Getty's nose and Steve's eyebrows.
Okay, you pick one and I'll pick one. We don't have to agree on it or anything, but you pick one,
You
I'll
just get
pick
two
one.
picks. That seems fair.
Yeah,
Oh man, but even then, it's like,
I know.
okay, if we're gonna do that, we have to decide: is Bootsy or Crazy Horse?
Let's decide this first, and then we'll decide who the crazy horse is going to be.
But see, then because like if Bootsy's not already up there, like
Then you're going to pick Bootsy.
yeah, I'm gonna pick Bootsy, and then it's like,
Well, who
yeah,
else
it's
would
like
be a good crazy horse?
Lemmy.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, it's like a three-way tie for my pick on the front with Bootsy, Lemmy, and Geezer Butler, with like Phil Lynott like close fourth or close second.
Oh, yeah, Phil. It'd be hard even if we didn't already have two slots filled. But having
Yeah.
the two slots filled makes it even harder.
Yeah.
For me, it's going to be either Leland Sklar or Ronnie Lane.
Okay. I would lean towards Ronnie Lane on your picks. Who would you lean towards on my picks?
Phil.
Man. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Man, do you know Leland Sklar at all? He would look super cool carved up there.
It's true.
Like, yeah, check out a Leland Sklar video. Just see if there's like some short interview clip with him so you can see this guy, because
Yeah.
it might change your mind. Wait, he played on Susudio.
Yeah.
Dude.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I see what you mean. Like we could just carve like his face and let like the scree.
Yeah, the scree field could be his beard.
Turn into his beard. You could just carve down to his nose. Like,
but Lemmy would look no less cool up there.
True.
Oh man.
Yeah, with the sweet mutton chops. Those two weird moles that he's got.
Oh boy.
But it's like we can't do it on looks. Like it's on strictly on looks. It's
okay. Okay. There's been a couple times now where you've talked about people that kind of look like each other.
Yes.
Getting carved in the mountain. It was Jimmy Page and Richie Blackmore.
Yep.
And it was, who was it? Carmen Apiece and Tom Savini. Right?
I thought
there was another one too.
There might have been.
There might have been another one too.
Was it Carmen or Vinny?
It was Carmen.
Okay, Carmen Apiece, and yeah.
Yeah.
Non-musician special effects artist Tom Savini.
Right. But if we put Lemmy up there, because Lemmy also has a doppelganger. Like, I have a picture of you from a few years back when you had mutton chops.
Yep.
Holding up the ace of spades. And it wouldn't be Tom Savini was an musician.
Yeah.
But since it is our mountain, we could have like a Lemmy Clark doppelganger.
I could sit in for the chiselers.
Right. You could be the body double.
Right.
The stunt double for the rock carving. That
is possible.
Okay. Bootsy on the front, Lemmy is the crazy horse on the back. And then one more spot. What do you think of that?
Bootsy on the front. Lemmy is the crazy horse. Okay. Yeah.
And then who?
Yeah. Ronnie Lane or Leland Sklar.
Let's do this is going to be the coolest looking mountain. Bootsy, Getty, Steve, Leland Sklar, and Lemmy on the back.
Yep. I like it. That one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I have one with a picture of you next to Lemmy. I found like a picture of Lemmy that like looks like that pose pretty close.
Yeah,
I can put it up on our Facebook page.
I also made this meme.
I can't really see it.
It's me, an older picture of Lemmy, the dog Lemmy, and Renaissance painter.
Oh, yeah.
Albrecht Dürer. 3 dirt bags and a cute puppy.
Oh, man. So that's our mountain. We got one more Rushmore episode coming up next. Yep. So keyboards is our next one. And then we'll do our fantasy football league super groups.
Nice. Yeah, I have to be honest, I was not really looking forward to the keyboard player one because I'm not that big a keyboard fan. But then much like the bass player one where it was like, okay, here are my definite picks. And then like, oh, right. I forgot about this guy. I forgot about this guy. Yeah. So, I mean, most of mine might all be honorable mentions, but we'll see. I might throw a few in there.
Oh, are you going to dig out some keyboard players? Because
I might. Yeah, maybe give me 12 hours to
sleep on it.
Let me sleep on it. Lemmy, sleep on it.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, I'll add a few.
Cool.
Just like let's name John Lord.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of he's one of them.
Yep. But yeah, quick little tangent.
Oh, man.
So
yeah, lots of tangents.
If Leland Sklar is like the wizard of the D&D group, and Jarkko Aaltonen is like the dwarf.
Oh, man. Well, and Ronnie Lane is a hobbit.
Ronnie Lane's the hobbit thief. So who would be like the human fighter? Would it be Steve Harris or Lemmy or Phil Lynott or
Steve Harris?
Steve Harris. You think the eyebrows are fierce enough?
Yeah.
Be like the barbarian.
Yep.
Barbarian fighter.
Well, and I could also see like an elf lady falling in love with him.
Nice.
Getty's kind of an elf.
That's true. Yeah. Getty could be like the half elf ranger.
Man, we have the whole Middle Earth represented in just bass players.
Right?
Yeah. And Steve Harris is going to be Rohirrim because of the galloping.
That's true. Yeah. He's a horse lord for sure. Nerd alert. Nerd alert.
Dude, it's obvious. He's got the gallop.
It's
Total Rohirrim.
I will die on this hill.
Yeah, man. Who's the creepy golem? Do we have a creepy golem?
Donnie Benet.
Oh, sorry, Donnie.
We love your look.
We do. Yeah. But he wouldn't be like Gollum, but he would do Gollum-ish things. Like he'd be all, my precious.
Definitely. Oh, man. So good.
Oh, man. Well, I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We're thankful for all these musicians that like make life bearable by putting great music out there to get us through the days.
Yep.
So have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll keep trying to churn them out through the holidays.
We got stacks and stacks of topics for episodes.
Yep. And once we get through this big theme stuff, we'll try and keep them a little shorter, but it is what it is. So
yeah, we'll go back.
I like long podcasts myself.
Me too.
I know everybody doesn't, and I know some people are listening while they commute, and they don't want to have to stop halfway. So,
yeah, we'll do more of the introduction to a band.
Yeah, actually, as I was
those
prepping
really
for
fun.
the keyboard one, I was like, oh man, what song do I pick for this? It's like, we should have episodes where it's just an album. Because an album is about 10 songs.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 songs is going to be like an hour-long show. If we don't go down too many tangents. So, I mean, that's an option too, just to cover a complete album straight through, discuss each song. But
right, yeah,
we'll
we
see
talked
where we're
about
at.
that. We could do something kind of like, we've talked about doing new versus old, like new Maiden, old Maiden, new Rush, old Rush kind of stuff. But I mean, we could do stuff like that. Like, it's one of their more overlooked albums, like Final Frontier by Iron Maiden is like one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums. Like, it's not Number of the Beast or
Killers,
Power Slave or Killers, but
Power Slave. Oh yeah. This is the problem though. It's like you start. Oh yeah, but what about Power Slave? Yeah. What about Peace of Mind? What about? It never ends.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's like if you don't already listen to Power Slave, like maybe this isn't the podcast for you.
Well, for me, it's like, okay, this is my favorite,
but
this is my favorite album today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Kind of thing. Like I got into it with Cousin Joe one time. Like, oh yeah, Power Slave, Killers, and Number of the Beast are my top 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, well, what about this album? It's like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, those are my 3 favorite albums today.
Yeah, and it's like Book of the Dead is really good. Yeah, talk about Iron Maiden all day.
Well, we have no shortage of topics.
Yeah,
and we'll cover bands first because we could do a Maiden episode and cover a lot of ground and cherry pick our favorites.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't mind doing and like hosting and receiving. I mean, it makes it sound so gross. I wouldn't mind being like
checking out.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't mind hosting and being checking out some of the hear me out. Like I did with normal and you've done with
the convincer episodes.
Yeah, the convincer episodes. Thank you. I knew we had a term for them.
Yeah, well, we'll get to them, but enjoy that turkey.
Yeah, we got a
tofurkey or whatever your jam is, and put on some good tunes and stay warm and dry. And have a great week, everybody. Bye.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Checking out music with my bro. Will it dig it? Yes or no? Here we go.